So good morning, David, and good morning, everybody joining us. We're going to start in about 90 seconds. And so, yeah, I can see a few people starting to appear on my list already. So good morning, Dion and Andrew, Hitesh, Peter, Stan and Tony. What I tend to find is that the attendee list tends to populate very, very slowly. I'm getting loads coming on now, actually. It tends to populate very slowly. We've had a lot of people register for today's webinar, so that's fantastic. It's obviously quite a pertinent subject. On your screen, you will see David, who's joined me from Wood & Disney.
Morning.
And in fact, I tell you what, I'm just going to just do a quick sound check. Obviously, David is remote, so given that he can hear me, I'm going to assume that our microphones are working. But anybody listening right now, just stick a yes in the chat box just to verify that you can hear and see us both. Brilliant. Okay, that's fantastic. Lots of people. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, so just shy of 30 seconds. And then we'll start. So lots of familiar names on there and a few new names as well, which is always great. So welcome everybody. I'm just going to pick off a few of the names that I can see there. So I can see Nigel Bennett's online. Morning, Nigel. I've not seen you for a while. Hope you're doing well. I can see Tony, Shamsul, Roy. We spoke recently, Roy and I. Rennie, I can see, so morning. Louise, not seen you on here for a while, Louise. And Katrina, Ian, Graham, Cahal. Hopefully I've got your name pronounced correctly, Cahal. And yeah, Carol, Barry, another Andy, and Pravin. So welcome. And the list continues to build. However, I make it gone 10:30, so we will begin. That's great to hear, Nigel. Thanks for getting back to me on that one. And yeah, morning. Oh, you're in Chicago, are you? Well,
very nice. Very nice.
Yes. So yeah, great to see you. Of course, you're from Chicago. Fantastic. Well, it must be very early in the morning for you, Rennie. Then that's for sure. Yes, I'm forgetting it.
It feels early now. It's 10:30. It's 10:30 here. It feels early.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if about 5:30 in the morning, I think, for Rennie. Right then, fantastic. So, well, for those of you who joined since I said hello to David, this is David Rudd joining us from Wood & Disney, based over in Colchester. I say over in Colchester, that might be very close to where you are, I don't know. David is a client manager at Wood & Disney. Now, often, in fact, I'm just going to screen share and load up a couple of slides that I tend to share at Masterclass. So forgive me whilst I just get that going. Now, the screen share, well, in fact, just to put it into perspective, we run through a series of 7 stages in an AVN roadmap that help an accountancy practice become much more, I suppose, build on capacity, but then ultimately become much more scalable as a business. So the stage that we're going to be talking about really today features in our gearing, which is really the 4th stage up. Clarity of positioning, value is about adding much more value, enabling the practice owner to work less hours, if they want to, of course, but ultimately earn much more income and leverage their time better. Gearing and automation really about scaling the accountancy practice up. So just having a look at gearing for a moment. I often give this analogy of the gear stick because it can often feel like, you know, let's say you're in a car, you're traveling along, your foot's to the ground, but you're actually in first gear. So the engine's screaming its head off. The engine represents the practice owner, and the vehicle isn't moving particularly fast, the vehicle representing the business. Obviously, what happens in a car is you put the you put the clutch down, you change gear, the engine relaxes, but the vehicle starts to move faster. That's kind of the analogy that comes with gearing. Many people who run their own accounting practice, it kind of feels like this, doesn't it? Everything depends on you. People are coming to you for all sorts of different reasons, whether it's your clients, maybe it's your team as well, and various suppliers as well. So you're the one that's having to deal with pretty much everything. And this is whether it's one partner or several partners lots require. Now, my next slide really represents a single partner, but exactly the same principle applies to multi-partner firms. You know, the partner in an accountancy practice feels that they have to do the work, they have to see prospective clients, they have to have the meetings with their existing clients, and so everything goes through them. And as they start to employ one, three, or several employees, really very little changes in that context. So it might be that their employees are producing more, but the partner still feels that they have to double check everything that comes through. They still have to see prospective clients, and they still have the meetings and take the calls, and ultimately they're the ones that are basically in high demand by everybody, because even having a team of people, unless you create the right kind of culture, you've got the right people on board, the team are still coming to you with maybe problems that you have to deal with as well. So that can be very overwhelming, and you'll just simply become that bottleneck. And as I say, the same principle applies to multi-partner firms. So one of the things that we've advocated here at Avian for, I think, since day one, is to put this kind of setup in place where you've got client managers. Your client managers are the ones that are doing the work, they're double checking the work, they're seeing the clients, they're presenting the work, but of course they're also delivering the higher value type services like business growth advisory, etc. And they're also the ones that are seeing prospective clients as well, if assuming that you choose to have that setup in place and not somebody who's dedicated in sales. So that's the key difference there. But also the role of the partner for this to be effective also has to change. If the partner is still in the same camp as the client manager, then they're not going to have the time to support their client managers and coach them and help them to develop. So really the role of the partner has to change away from being client-facing to really nurturing and coaching their client managers. Now, when you've got this setup in place, what that enables you to do then is start to scale up, because as each of your client managers reaches capacity, then you can start to add more client managers in there. So that's really the principle behind this. David, of course, is playing one of those client manager roles, and we're going to talk to David very shortly. Now, before I go any further, what I'd like to do is just invite you. Now, this can either be by the chat box or it can be by the Q&A box, and in the Q&A you've got the option to be anonymous if you prefer that. What I'd like to do now, just run through that little scenario, is just type in what are the questions that you love an answer for, what are the concerns that you have about this process, because then we can run them past David as well. And we can air those challenges and concerns. So as I say, either the chat box, and you've got the option to be anonymous in there, or the Q&A box is anonymous, the chat box, you can choose whether just to send it to panelists or all attendees as well. Now, the benefit to all attendees is that obviously other people can see that you've asked that question, so it reduces duplication, but I don't mind. So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds right now just to populate that chat box. And I invite you, there will be something in your head. You've come onto this webinar for a reason, and that's because you've got a burning question or a key concern about it. Okay, so they're starting to come in. That's fantastic. And I'm just going to give you another 20 seconds on that just for them to come in. So that's fantastic. We're getting lots of questions coming in here. Okay, so another nearly 10 seconds. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so now feel free to put more in, but I just want to give you that opportunity of just typing your questions in. And I appreciate we all type at different rates as well, so feel free. Now, okay, so we're getting quite a few more still coming in into the Q&A as well, so that's fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody. By all means, as the interview with David progresses, feel free to contribute more questions in there, because obviously it's better that these are questions coming from you rather than from me, if possible. Now, one final slide I have on here is that a common concern that is often raised by people is, what if the client manager, you give them all this responsibility, they've got their own client base, what if they then go run away with all of those clients to set up their own business? And of course, regardless of whether you go down that route or not, an employee is always in that position where they could do that, couldn't they? They could maybe build relationships and run away. The chances, and I know some people that are watching this now have created a fantastic environment and culture within their team. For me, if you create a great culture, one of the main reasons why people go off and set up their own business and maybe try and steal clients is largely because they're not happy where they're working more than the opportunity that they see in creating their own business. However, so anyway, let me. Oh, sorry, I've just spotted a key question there. Okay, that is a great point. I'm not going to name names just yet. I'll come on to that very shortly, but it just got my attention. Anyway, one of the things I talk about is if you create a great culture within your firm, then people are much less likely to want to go and set up their own accountancy business. Because let's face it, it's not a walk in the park, is it? There's lots of risk involved, and most people don't want to take that risk losing those clients that they thought might come with them, and then therefore sabotage their future career prospects and their income, certainly in the short term, to do that. So if you get the balance right between creating an environment that is fair, of course, and the rewards are in place and various other things, there's this great sense of camaraderie where people are feeling that they're in it together with other people, but actually there's a greater purpose as well that they're all collectively striving towards, and there's a great sense of achievement within the firm. Those three elements, when put into place within a business, creates an environment of enthusiastic people. So, okay, I'm going to terminate my screen share now, and then we will just focus on the... let me try and come out of here now. My screen share. There we go. There we go. Right. Okay. So we're here. So let me just start with the opening question before we look at the ones that have come up here. Just by asking David. David, would you say that the environment that Wood and Disney create creates a team of enthusiastic people? Let me just jump straight in there.
Definitely. I think there's some excellent questions that have just come up, but that is the start of all of it. So without that, then it kind of leads to, why would someone stay? Why would someone want to stay with you long term if you haven't created an environment that allows them to grow and that allows them to do the stuff they probably want to do? For me, I wanted to speak to more clients, and that's part of the reason I left my previous place. I wanted to speak to them more because you speak to clients more, you can help them more. And that environment has been created at Wood Disney.
Brilliant. Okay. Okay. So, at what point did you make that shift, I suppose, between? Let me reword the question. How did you become a client manager? What was the sort of transition that took place?
So, I've been here just under 4 years, and part of the reason I came was that was kind of the promise. That was how it was going to be set up. And the slide you show, which related to partner and effectively bottleneck, where the partner is getting all the work in, needing to review everything, seeing new clients. That pretty much was happening at Wood and Disney, and they were keen to rework it slightly so that there was a support team and there were client-facing managers, because I think Peter and Brendan, who are the owners, were very clever in this, and knew that if we spoke to clients more, we could help them more. But they just weren't getting the time to do that. So how do you create more time? That graphic you've displayed is exactly the way to do it. It works so well. Obviously, it doesn't happen overnight. So there's quite a few questions about responsibility and qualification. So there's a whole raft of things you have to do first to get that to happen. But it does work. It really works.
Good stuff. Okay. Well, my next question that I'd lined up has already been asked as well here by, where is it? By Ian Gargett, which is about, if the relationship with the clients is with the partner,
yep.
How did the clients feel about being passed to somebody else, a client manager, and how was that process handled?
So it started off, historically there'd be, for example, Peter would know a client and he'd be having a lot of the meetings. Started off with me effectively shadowing him. So he'd have a meeting, I'd be there as well. And part of the reason I did that with Peter, we wanted to keep more of an agenda for the meetings. So I was there to kind of make sure we'd covered all the points. And then gradually I'd be covering more of the points as the meeting progressed. And then it got to the stage where I just did it on my own. So I already had a bit of connection with the client. I spoke to them in the background. I'd been introduced. And then it gradually got passed over that way. In terms of clients that have not been happy with that, I don't think we've had one yet. And what they've got as well is a different kind of angle. They've got a different way of looking at it, that I look at it slightly differently, which I think has been a good thing for most of them. There hasn't really been anyone that's been negative about it.
Brilliant. And how has Brendan and Peter's role changed within the practice as a result of this?
So I quite like the Gerber model about working on the business, making sure that all three areas of the business are working well. Me and a few of the other team speaking to clients more frequently as client managers has helped them to free up some time to then start looking at the practice and the business as a whole, and then looking at where the direction of it's going, looking at, are we doing the marketing stuff? Are we doing that right? Is the operations working as well as it could? Is everything in the right place? Do we need anything else? Which they couldn't do previously because they were just getting stuff from all over the place, which the graphic kind of describes perfectly.
Good stuff. So I can see lots of questions here on some more of the detail. I'm going to go into the detail very shortly. So from a big picture level, really, I'm just kind of ascertaining, obviously you've handed, clients have been handed over to client managers. That's freed up partners in your case, especially to focus more on growing the business. And that's the whole principle, isn't it, behind the Gerber message, as quite rightly said. So they're doing much more of that now. What has been the impact of all of that then on Wood and Disney, would you say, since they've stepped away from more client-facing to focusing on the business? How has Wood and Disney as a whole changed during that period of time?
So I think there's a couple of things that have changed. I think the mindset of internally has changed. So historically, it was always job comes in, a compliance job, get it done, get it out. That's it, next one. Now we all have more time to go, okay, we've got a compliance job in, a set of accounts, for example, and we've got a bit more time to go, well, we'll do that, but is there anything else that we can help the client with to improve it for next year? So we've started to move away from historic, this is what happened 6 months ago, 9 months ago, to so this happened, what can we do about it in 6 months, 9 months, which every single client we spoke with in that kind of strategy has worked really well, and that's improved for them, and they seem quite happy with it.
Good stuff. Okay, so I'm just going to go back now again, just to remind people, and I've seen the odd questions still coming back in, which is fantastic. Feel free to ask questions along the way. So again, that was really a big picture type of thing. What then? Just going back onto, you said this handing over of clients to you. How long did that process take to hand over the clients effectively over to client managers from the partners? Was it just an overnight, we're sending out a letter, don't talk to us anymore, or what was the process?
No, I think it was gradual, to be honest. There was, because if, for example, at the time there was myself, kind of the client manager there, and we've started to bring others on as well. So if that went out to all of the clients, then effectively all that would have happened is, instead of the partners getting all of it, it would have been me. So we gradually done it. So introduced a couple. What we actually did was graded the clients first, and then went, right, let's focus on the A clients. Are they getting enough attention? Some of them weren't. So they gradually introduced me. I then started taking more meetings, and then built up a bit of trust, and then moved on to the next. So some of them 1 or 2 meetings, some of them a couple of phone calls, that was it. Then it was me. So it depended on the client, and it also depended on how long they'd been here as well, and the relationship they've built up with Peter and Brendan over the years. Hasn't really been any that have been that difficult to kind of change that mindset, really, because at the end of it, the whole purpose of doing this is to help the client more and to give them better service and to make sure that their business is resilient and can improve and grow. You can't really argue with that as a client. That's kind of what they want, I think, what it seems to be. And it's sort of an improvement on the historic just doing compliance work.
Mm. So let's just go into that a little bit more then. So the role that you play isn't producing just the compliance work for a client and then talking them through the accounts, is it?
Not really. I think that's the starting point. That's the starting conversation. This is what happened. But I think there's a lot more that can be added by talking about where they want to get to. So we know where they've been. We know there's a few things they could change going forward, but if we don't talk about where they want to go, effectively we just become a cost to them as a profession, and I think that has happened historically, which is why there's this focus to move to client-facing team. I think is definitely the right way to do it.
So you sat down with them, you asked them where they want to go, they share maybe their dreams and aspirations with you.
Yeah.
How then are you able to spot the opportunities where you can provide and Wooden business can provide additional services that will help them to get there?
Probably one word for that: systems. I know you're a great believer in systems, and we've kind of taken that on. We've taken that on too, because if the ability to spot opportunities is just in the partner's head, that's not really that helpful to anyone else. So what we've done, and we're not there yet by any stretch of the imagination, but we've started to create systems on opportunity spotting, on basically the way the partners look at, for example, reviewing a job or taking a board meeting. How does that happen? What interactions, what questions do you need to ask? What questions maybe you don't need to ask? And the process for each one. Because once we've got that, then we can teach someone else how to do it. And that's what's been happening. And it's worked pretty well so far. Not, like I said, not perfect. I like the analogy about the iPhone. So it's iPhone 10 or 11. It started off with version 1. So get something, try it. It won't be perfect, and just evolve it and do it again. And it's never going to be perfect, but if you don't start with something, all you're going to be left with is the bottleneck, is the continuous everything coming through you as a partner.
Just to devil's advocate for a while, for a minute here, then you've talked about putting systems in place, and I suppose the downside, arguably, to following a system is that it's almost robot style. You're waiting for someone maybe to say something, you can match the system and think, oh, they've said that, therefore I need to ask that. Does that take away the maybe the commerciality, the judgment that somebody who is a partner maybe has established their business, has gone through a lot of those types of challenges themselves? Do you see where I'm coming from? It's almost like it feels like very much robot fashion, waiting for this, then that on a system, or kicking in there with the judgment. Does that make sense? How
exactly. Yeah, I think that takes a bit of time, to be honest. I think the first couple of meetings, obviously, whoever's going to be taking the meetings, they haven't done it before on their own. There's going to be a little bit of nerves, a little bit maybe missing opportunities, but I tend to think that people tend to buy into people quite a lot, and your personality has to shine through. Otherwise, you are, like you said, you're just a robot. So the agenda's on. This is what you follow. It's kind of a rough guide to go, well, have you asked this question? And then you use a bit of initiative within it as well, because I don't think that we have anyone in our team that is not capable of great things. So we don't need to tell them to do every single thing in every single step. But what you do need is kind of a little bit of just a reminder in the background to go, well, have I asked that question, and tick it off? Have I asked that question? Have they mentioned this? So yeah, by systems, I don't mean that they're rigidly stuck to. they're kind of there as a guide and a bit of help, really. And I think it's like you mentioned, it's mentoring. I think that's the way I see it.
Okay. Well, another concern that is raised, I think a couple of times here, but I'm just going to put my own spin on the language is, do your clients, I suppose, want to pay less because they're not working with a partner? And also, do they not feel that they're getting the same level of value because it's not partner? So that, as I say, that's just my spin on a couple of the things that I've just glanced through.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if Peter or Brendan's listened to this, but the feedback we've got has been that, well, the evidence we've got is that clients are paying more than they used to, because as client managers we have more time to spend with clients. We're spotting more opportunities. We're giving them a better service. We're giving them more solutions to the real problems they have. They're willing to pay more, and we have the time to deliver it as well. Whereas historically, if everything is coming to the partner, they may well be having meetings everywhere, but they're probably just too busy to actually do the work that the client is asking them to do, or they've just done it and just kind of not taken a step back and given a quote for the work instead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have a glance through now and just convey some of the questions here. So
yeah.
All right, just to again fold a few of these queries into one here. What are the types of qualities that a good client manager should have? And when I say qualities, I'm talking both the qualifications and the level of qualifications, but also on the other side of it, the human side of it, the personality, that side. What would you say the answer to that is?
So I think I look at it two ways, because I think qualifications, given time, anyone can get a qualification. So that's teachable. I think the part that isn't is the values and the reason that you're doing the job that you're doing. That I don't think that is teachable. If the values don't really match and the reason you're doing it doesn't really match the business you're working for, that doesn't really work that well long term. So in terms of values you need, I think caring for what happens to the client and wanting to do the best for them, that's an overriding theme of everything we do. We want to help people. That's why we're all doing this. And if that doesn't match with someone's personality, then it isn't really teachable. I don't think you can do much about that. And it comes through, I think, as well. If you're not that bothered about how well they're doing and you just want to just tick some boxes, you effectively are behaving like a robot, which isn't a great place to be. In terms of qualification, I think it depends on the type of work you're going to be doing. For myself, I'm AAT qualified, I'm ATT qualified, so I haven't gone on to ACCA or ACA. And so far, it's worked pretty well. That said, I think there's merit in qualifications. I think you have to have something to prove to clients that you've put the work in to get to where you are and you know what you're talking about. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
And again, if it doesn't to anyone, feel free to put that in the box. So again, I can see a steady increase of questions coming in. In fact, almost a duplicate now. Yeah, that's interesting. So how big a portfolio do you have?
So at the moment, for the company, we've got about 150 limited companies. So we tend to try and split them. Well, it depends on the other work that's coming in, because I noticed someone mentioned about new work coming in and whether I and client managers get involved in that. When we first looked at it, we didn't really get any client managers involved with any of the new pipeline stuff or any of the new sort of marketing. We now are starting to build a system for that as well, which is going to mean that in terms of the other work they're doing, that's going to drop off slightly to then create more people looking for more leads, to then fill the funnel of people coming in. So in terms of the number, I guess it depends on the size of the client. We've got quite a varied amount of clients in terms of turnover, in terms of employees, in terms of problems they have, really. So it varies. One-man bands, we do quite a few of those, but if they're a team of 30, it takes a bit longer and there's more input for each one. So it really depends on the size of the client.
Okay, that's understandable. Nadeem, I know I wasn't forgetting the first time you asked the sort of question. So now that slide I showed each client manager having their own support team. I'm also aware that different business, this is just a guide, isn't it? It's a suggestion. Different accountancy businesses do something very, they all have their own take on it. And I know some have maybe just a shared pool. What's it like in Wood & Disney? Do you have a dedicated team yourself, or is it a shared pool?
No, it's a shared pool. So I think part of this doesn't work if you don't have the support team, because what happens is the client manager then is trying to do client-facing work, but then they have to do all the support stuff as well, which kind of sometimes get overlooked. I think that is the foundation of everything. Without that, it doesn't allow the other stuff to work. So the best analogy, I think, is building a house. Like, if you have decent foundations, you build a fantastic house. So for us, if we have decent foundations, which are the compliance stuff is being worked on, it's being filed, people are being chased for the records, all that sort of great stuff, that needs to happen in the background. Otherwise, trying to complete a set of accounts and then base advice on that set of accounts, which isn't great, the end result is the client doesn't get anything out there. So the support staff are everything. Without that support team, it just doesn't work.
So who does the compliance work?
Sorry?
Who does the compliance work? That was a recent question that just came up.
Oh, okay, so the way we structure it is we've got a support team that do kind of check and record when the records come in for a job. They get checked to make sure that what the client said they're going to give us is accurate, which kind of then eliminates scope creep. So we don't start a job unless we have all the records in the order we need them. It's been agreed in advance. Otherwise, what we found is that start a job, kind of then get into the middle of it and go, I can't finish it because I'm missing this, or they didn't do that, which then creates a problem for the client and us, because we have to go and speak to them. It wastes time. So that happens first, and then we use outsourcing quite a lot. We use Advanced Track, who are brilliant because they do a lot of the compliance work, and we get a file then to review before the account is sent out, which has allowed us to then focus on just the bits that we should be doing, really, and just do the kind of add-on stuff that clients really want us to do.
Brilliant. Thank you. Let me just have a quick flick through some of these questions to make sure I've not missed anything. So I think we've kind of answered the who's responsible for the extra work. How would you say that, because how many client managers are now at Wood & Disney?
We've got 3 now.
3.
Yeah.
So how have they been developed?
Gradually, and so basically the same process. So I think almost I was a guinea pig with it, which has worked really well. And then we're now starting to scale that as well, so that we can then kind of grow the practice by using the same technique. So mentoring, agenda, follow this is what you should ask, is there a problem here? This is what we've come across before. Same process for new people, because it works for everyone, really.
Okay. There's a few here about pay. I'm not sure how comfortable you feel answering those questions.
Sorry, which one?
Pay, the salary. How do you reward your client managers?
I think so. There's a really interesting question I saw about that on here. I don't remember who it was, but about profit share and stuff like that. I think that's a great way to do it, because if it's structured the right way, because if not, then you could create a sales team effectively of bonuses, commission and all that stuff, which doesn't really lead itself that well. terms of pay, I think it really depends on where you are. I know at this current point in time, there's almost a skill shortage for this level of kind of job. So it might be that, and some of the best thing we have started off just coming in a really junior level, and they've been kind of gradually trained up to then create the client manager role, which has worked really well so far. And I think at the moment, because of that skill shortage, I think that's probably the best way to go at this precise time.
Okay. So who is maybe still largely everything is centered around the practice, but they've got a support team mainly in admin. What would the recommended way forward be for those types of people?
So for the team or for the company?
Well, for the partner to start to, well, the obvious is that they need to recruit somebody, don't they, that's got the...
Yeah, I think
skills.
Going back to the Gerber message of it, I think the easiest way to do it is if you've got a partner and it's just you, probably the best place to start is client service coordinator, CSC. Effectively, someone that's going to take off some of those admin tasks and some of that work you've probably been doing that, deep down, you could probably just show someone how to do that and they could do it for you, but you haven't because you're too busy, and also it takes a bit of time to show someone, so you may as well just do it yourself. That is probably the kind of easiest way to start scaling it, to take off some of that other work to free up some time to then give you more time to show or senior client manager how to do it. I think that's the best way to start it.
Good stuff, thank you. There was a question here about what should a cut-off be, if any, between what clients should be held by the partners and which therefore should be passed on to client managers?
We don't have one. There isn't any, to be honest, because I think the problem with that is, and it did happen towards a few years ago. What was happening is just the same bottleneck that was appearing before, because most of the time, the larger the client, the bigger the issues they have, which then means it takes more of the partner time up. It doesn't really make sense to kind of go, well, that turnover bracket is partner only, because that's just the same problem that you described anyway. Why have it? Why do that? That doesn't make any sense to me. It didn't make any sense to us at all.
Good stuff. Yeah, if you see my eyes keep flicking off to the side, that's where my chat boxes are.
Yeah, mine too.
I had another thought coming to my head, but it's gone now since I've distracted myself. So let's just have a look at Nadim's question here. It says, when you talk about systems, are you using all the AVN systems? What do you find most useful? I'll give you a couple of questions in there, different ones, but go on.
Good question. We're not using all of them. I think because when we first looked at AVN, you kind of almost get a kind of overwhelm of, wow, there's so much stuff we could use. There's an awful lot of stuff that would help that client, this client, that client. The one I started with, I looked at simple stuff that works, but business potential is the one that I found most useful because it leads so well into pricing. Are they working with the right people? And what would happen if they made a few changes? Because you can do it on screen, give them a report, then you can work on that. That seems to work for any business too. So that's the one I use most. And that's the one that lends itself so well to pretty much every conversation you have because it's so interactive.
Yeah, and I think me just expanding on this slightly as well, especially from your point of view, Nadim, you were very recently at a masterclass, unless I'm confusing Nadim's, in which case, forgive me. I talk about, systems kind of expand into lots of areas, and one particular type of system is a methodology, if you like, for delivering consulting work. Yes, sorry. Thank you, Nadim. Just wanted to verify. And if I said to you, work with me, I can help you grow your business, that's not as powerful as saying, I've got a proven 6-step formula that's guaranteed to help you increase your profitability. and obviously I just said that off the top of my head, but that sounds like, it says it's proven, so you must have got support for that. It's guaranteed. It's 6 steps, so it sounds like it's a system that you go through. It's a methodology ultimately, isn't it, that you can put in place? And I think, we've got SSTW, which is also very similar to business potential in the way that it works. We've got the performance measurement and improvement systems, and those things are all there to help you really promote a solution that is in effect a system, isn't it? It's a set of stages that you go through, just like the AVM roadmap that I talk about. And I think, systems, the word systems lends itself to lots of things, not just the, how we answer the phone here, but it's also how we spot opportunities here, how we present, how we help clients improve here, and those types of things. So I just wanted to expand on that a little bit. The systems really, that's spot on, Nadine.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to have a flick through. Are there any? If you feel that you've asked a question and I missed it, forgive me. There's lots in here. Feel free just to ask it again at the bottom, and I shall look out just for those more recent questions then now. One question from the Q&A is, why go to client manager rather than partner?
What, as a client, or?
Well, from running a business, most of the people on here are accountants, partners in practice. So why? I mean, I've got an idea in my head as to what the answer is, but I'm just going to throw it straight at you. Why go to client manager rather than just invite somebody to become a partner?
I think there's 2 parts to it. I think to invite someone as a partner, in my mind, you kind of have to know that they're the right fit. How are you going to know that if you don't almost test them, give them the opportunity to show you how good they are? And I think also, if it went straight to partner, I think a lot of people, depending on the kind of experience they have, would probably be like, well, why are you giving me that straight away? That doesn't make any sense. Kind of need to show you. I need to make sure it's a good fit for me as well, from the client manager point of view as well.
Mm. Yeah. You already mentioned values as a key part, and part of the same ethos. I've seen lots of, the person who's asked this question, I think he's got a fantastic business. I don't know whether he wants to remain anonymous, so I shan't mention you. But an amazing accountancy business, and it is many, many partners in there. But I think also, if we think about that Gerber message, if the partner is doing that type of work, that partner is still in that lower, forgive that isn't meant to sound as it does, but the box that's further down in that organisation chart of being a client manager. And likewise, if they're taking on new work, they're in the other box. It's a salesperson, and it's just appreciating that organisation chart and thinking, well, actually, if you're going to run it as a business, you don't necessarily have to have people who are delivering that type of work in that as equity partners, do you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, because I do think as well, particularly if you're in the sales part, if you're a partner and it's all driven by profit share, commission, I kind of don't think that lends itself that well to then having a team, because if it's all commission based and you're a sale, why would you then go, I've got a bit of work, can you help me with that? This is what we need to do. And I think it could create the same bottleneck. Got all these leads coming in, I need to deal with them because then I get a commission based on that. I'm not sure it works that well. Not in this professional industry. I think that everyone, and I think a lot of the problems that have been created around bottlenecks are mostly because we all actually want to help clients at the end of the day. We're not driven by commission and making money. I mean, that's part of it, obviously, but I think we actually want to help people. That's why we do this job.
Yeah, and I think so. A few people have summarised their questions again in there, so I'm just going to move on to that. First of all, I'm just going to address Ian. Ian, you asked about what methods are referring to in Gerber. So appreciate, I've probably gone out there on the assumption that lots of people will have experienced our masterclass, which is probably an unfair assumption to make in general. So Gerber, when I refer to Gerber, is Michael Gerber. He wrote many, many years ago, and he's done a few revisions of it since, an amazing book called The E-Myth, which is the entrepreneur myth. And he talks about the fact that, and we see this so many times in accounting practices, that somebody will set up the business, they're great at doing something in particular, so they'll set up that and everything centres around them being that bottleneck. And he gives us the scenario that actually, if you think about any business, they've all got really the same kind of organisation chart. You've got a financial role to play, you've got a marketing role to play, you've got sales roles, you've got the operational roles and things like that. And that can really be broken down into lots of boxes, from receptionist to salesperson to, you know, whatever they might be. If you're a one-person band, your name is effectively in every single one of those boxes in the organisation chart. The point to systemizing is that you put systems in place in isolation for a box so that you can put somebody else to fill that box, and you remove yourself out of it. You've freed that proportion of your time, then you can focus on the next box. And ultimately, you get yourself out of all of those boxes so that your business runs in the way that you want it to, but without you having to run it and participate in different elements. So hopefully that's helped you with that. Fantastic book, Gerber, and at Masterclass we show a video of Michael Gerber speaking.
We a lot of the time when I meet a new client, we tend to give them a copy of that book because it works so well for every single business. And I mean, there's a lot of detail in it, but the overriding theme of, do you want your business to just be you, or do you want your business to be something that's more than you, applies to every single client. And our business too. So I think it works so well with all of them.
I think, Rennie, you reposed your question as well about proper compensation, salary, bonus, commission, things like that. Now, I mean, some of the things that we talk about is that, and you've just said it yourself, David, haven't you, that money isn't everything. You know, you need a certain amount, and obviously you want to feel fairly well rewarded. If you imagine those three circles I pulled up before, I think, yeah, you've got to make sure you tick that box per individual. Are they feeling adequately rewarded for the work that they're doing, the qualifications, the experience, etc.? You've got to make sure that's right. And I'm not trying to put words in David's mouth there, but if you think about those other things, you know, feeling that you're being part of something much bigger. And I know one of the things that Wood and Disney is about, you know, family is one of the core values, isn't it?
Yeah.
Disney, and helping people achieve a better business that gives the business owner more time to spend with their family is really important. And that's a big driving force for you, isn't it? So forgive me if I put words in your mouth, but that's
precisely that. That's exactly what it is. I think, I don't know if anyone knows of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think that defines it perfectly, because as long as you're paid enough to cover shelter, food, you know, whatever else you need to do to survive, the kind of needs then become more complex, so that you can keep giving someone more money, but if you don't give them more responsibility, if you don't give them more trust, if you don't give them the ability to grow, you can pay them whatever, they're going to leave. And that has happened to a few people that I know. Money is not everything, particularly in this industry and this sector of business. It's not everything, and all it does is it just doesn't kind of lend itself that well to longevity. I think it's just a short-term reward that then comes back to where you still haven't filled that next box, so you need to give more money to it. It doesn't help, in my opinion. I could be wrong.
That's fair. Rennie's still querying over this thing on the salary. So how are you? You know, do you have bonuses in? You've heard me talk about bonuses and stuff like that, so I'll keep stum on this one. But do you have bonuses in place? Have you got those types of targets and things like that?
No, we don't have bonuses. It tends to be, because I think also bonuses don't sort of lend themselves that well when you have a support team, because if a bonus is based on work that you've received in or the jobs you've got, how is that fair to someone that doesn't have any client contact? Doesn't seem that fair at all. So it's all based on overall. We have an overall business target. These are the fees that we need to achieve. This is the work we need to do. This is the client happiness we need to receive. Then from that, we get reward from that. That's how, and it's split between us. So that's how it works.
In fact, lots of research shows that financial incentives can reduce cognitive ability because it makes people very tunnel vision focused when cognitive ability is kind of maybe out here thinking. So a recommendation for all of you actually is if you go into YouTube and look for Daniel Pink and TED, he does an amazing TED presentation on that very subject. So obviously it's an 18-minute video. Highly recommend you watch that. Some great research in there, and he is the author of Drive, which obviously that presentation is based on. Right then, we've got about 11 minutes left in this scheduled webinar. So do you have one person looking after a client and another allocated to day-to-day processes? I think you talked about that in terms of you've got a pool of people that deal with lots of the admin stuff. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, spot on. Yeah, exactly that. And also what we tend to do as well, because what we didn't want to create is something that then historically all the clients would go to the partner. We also don't want to create something that means all the clients go to the client manager, because you've just shifted the same problem onto someone else. So I think if you do have a team in the background, I think it's a good thing to let the client know that there is a support team. That we've all got specialisms. So sometimes, I mean, I'm not great at bookkeeping, pretty rubbish at payroll. So any question, I tend to give that to the specialists we have, because that means the client gets the best response and the best answer quicker than if I were to try and do it. And I think that, again, clients don't seem to mind that, because at the end of the day, they just want some help to solve a problem they have. A lot of them, like actually most of them, don't actually mind who delivers that, because they're not that fussy at this point in time. They're not that fussy about who delivers it. It's just, can they get the right answer and move on to working on their business.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thank you. Right, again, just flicking through here, I just want to make sure I've not missed any of the questions. Have you spotted anything, David, that you want to address?
I don't think so. There was some good, there's good points about the EMIF as well. In terms of I think we covered the training, and I think there are different ways to do it, but that just worked well with us. So the mentoring thing was perfect. Peter in particular talks about wanting to educate clients. We also do that internally as well, because that helps not only the client get better service, but also everyone else kind of move up, and it kind of meets those needs that we talked about with the Maslow hierarchy of needs. You then push to do more that you weren't done before. It gives you responsibility and accountability, and that's a good thing.
Brilliant. Ian, sorry, there's a question that Nadim's raised a couple of times. Nadim recently came to our masterclass, and by the way, we just started marketing for our next masterclass in October. Quick short plug here, don't worry, I'm not going to cover it much, but you should have received an email for that. I just want to let you know that already that's half full now. So look out for the emails about our masterclass, because we talk about this and so much more at masterclass. The next one's October. So yeah, look out for those emails. I highly recommend that you get on there. I know some of the people listening have been on one. Certainly you have as well, haven't you, David? What are your thoughts?
So the way we did it, Brendan went on the first masterclass on his own, came back pumped with basically a book of ideas, and then a couple of days later went and then had a load of other stuff to do, and then couldn't implement all of them. So myself and Becca, who's another client manager, we went on the next masterclass, came back with ideas. Tragically, we did a little presentation and a PowerPoint to everyone, and just focused on a few key points that would drive the business forward at the fastest rate possible, and almost split the tasks out. Then Sam, Peter, Christina went on one recently as well, done the same thing. So we kind of just looked at it, and there's so much that you want to do that we just split it down to little achievable targets, which we're still working on now. There's still loads of stuff we need to do. But by splitting it up, you don't get the overwhelm of going, I've got 50 things I've got to do, and not getting any of them completed.
Thank you. And Rennie, I know you travelled all the way over from Chicago to attend our previous October masterclass. That was, I think, 4,500 miles that you travelled to attend that. And I know you gave an amazing recommendation testimonial for doing that. So thank you very much. And thank you to you, Nadeem, as well for the recommendation there. Right, okay. So in terms of that, Rennie, I'll answer the queries in terms of dates for 2020 as well. But okay, let me just have a quick look. Oh, Nadine, to answer your question, Wouldn't Disney went for the added value level of membership, which gives access to the PMI and all of those other things. Just to answer that question. Right.
So a question about B1G1 as well.
Yes,
so we support B1G1, and we've got. I don't know if anyone's seen it. We've basically got a graphic in our hallway. So as clients come in. That's pretty much the first thing they see. And what we do is every time someone completes a bit of work, they have a service with us. We then offer them the chance to make a donation to whatever one they choose, because they're working with us and we want to help other people. And that's worked so well. We've got a couple of clients that were potential leads that have come to us because of that. And also, we've got a few clients now signing up to B1G1 themselves and offering the same thing to their clients. And I think that's the whole purpose of it. It kind of spreads among every industry. And it fits well with our values as well. We kind of want to help people that we can help. And I think we all should be doing that.
Thank you. Now that you mentioned that, I'm just going to very quickly, in case you haven't come across the UN Global Goals for Sustainable Development, I've just shared that screen just so you can just take a quick glance over there. And ultimately what B1G1 is a perfect channel, a fantastic channel, one of many of course, but for me a great channel for allowing you to very easily contribute to the different types of global goals that are out there. So B1G1 is just one channel of course, but what I particularly like about it, and I suspect that Wouldn't Disney feel the same, is that B1G1 do a lot of due diligence on the projects that they get involved in, and 100% of the giving goes to the impact that you want it to, and they take a different subscription, if you like, just to cover the basic admin stuff so that you know where it's going and that it's definitely going to get there. And that's one of the things I like about B1G1.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, just want to share that. And I think actually that was a fantastic way to finish, because at the 2018 October conference, you guys, in fact, you personally stood on stage, didn't you, and received the award, the AVN award for the Changing Lives Award, didn't you? Which is amazing. So would you just finish this presentation by just sharing with us the example of how Wouldn't Disney is changing lives?
So we had a client, husband and wife business, and they were engineers. And historically, they'd kind of struggled through. They'd made a fairly decent profit, but they'd always rented their house. So found out that one of their goals and ambitions was still to own their own house. So at the time when we first spoke about it, it's quite difficult. It felt like miles away. So we'd done a lot of work around getting them on the right system. So I gave them the E-Myth book. They literally read it cover to cover, highlighted bits, and they started to implement parts of that. They then started to look at pricing. They started to look at all sorts of stuff that we talked about in the board meetings, which then led to increases in profit, which then they were allowed to take more money out. So from that, it allowed them to then apply for the right mortgage, to buy their own house. And the last time I spoke to them, they were overpaying their mortgage, I think by about £1,000 a month. And they said we were a big part of that, and it wouldn't have been possible without us doing the work in the background to get that foundation right. I think they were quite happy with it. I think, and knowing that we've had an involvement in that has been brilliant.
Brilliant. That's a fantastic, really a culmination of everything that Wouldn't Disney strives towards and what we we help accountants to be in a better position to achieve as well, isn't it? So thank you very much for that. I've just got one final query that I've been wanting to answer, but it didn't feel relevant until right now. Peter, your question regarding my clock is, yes, it is a back to front clock. And
I have noticed that too, yeah.
Right then, okay. Thank you, everybody. Please, in the chat box or in the Q&A, whichever you prefer, just, we can't give David a round of applause, but please convey your appreciation for David spending an hour with us and sharing so much about the way that they run at Wooden Disney. So thank you.
That's no problem. It's really, it's been a pleasure. And some really good questions as well.
Yeah, good stuff. All right.
I'll get back to work. Thanks, Sam.
Lots of Thank you, everybody. Very much appreciated. And yeah, in fact, there's still a few flowing in, so I feel a bit guilty. But right, we'll stop right now. So all the best, everybody. Hope you have a great day. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes, there is, Des. I'll get it to you.